All right, I'm calling to order the August 26, 2026 meeting of the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School School Committee. We all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, John, for the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'd like to take a moment of silence for the passing of Sheila McKay. So she was a teacher throughout the Whitman-Hanson district, and after retirement came back and was a permanent sub. She passed away
3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. So
And it's
we have
McVeigh. not
McVeigh. What is it?
McVeigh.
McVeigh. Okay.
McVeigh.
Can we add Joni Maloney,
Yes.
who was the secretary over at Indian Head for a long time, and she also passed away this week.
Okay. So take a moment of silence, please, for those individuals. Okay, I'd like to announce they're being recorded by WHCA, broadcast on cable, and being placed on the internet for community viewing. First item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone here from the public who would like to speak? Nope, okay. All right, one of our members has stepped out for a minute, but she'll be back, but I'm just gonna press ahead. The first item on the agenda is the presentation of our school committee evaluation of our superintendent. Just for people watching this at home, the school committee, one of the school committee's jobs is to evaluate the superintendent each year. This year was obviously a little bit different. Dr. Marcus became our interim superintendent in March of 2026. So typically it seems like although I'm new too, but it seems like the kind of the pattern is that the superintendent presents goals to the school committee in the fall, and then he's evaluated on those goals at the end of the school year. Dr. Marcus, because he joined in March, did not set goals because he was busy leading the bucket brigade to put the school out, the school district out, fire out. And also, we wouldn't have an adequate amount of time to really judge him on those goals from March to June. So instead, I asked the committee to evaluate him on 4 standards that DESE sets forward to evaluate superintendents on. So one is instructional leadership. The second is management and operations. The third is family and community engagement. And the fourth is professional culture. And then kind of giving a summative score for his overall performance. The choices are unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. So what I am going to do is I'm just kind of going to give a summary of each of the standards and the kind of the sub-standards within those of how Dr. Marcus did, and just so people know, and then I guess open up the floor to members if they want to add anything about their particular evaluation or any comments they have about Dr. Marcus's performance as our interim superintendent. So under the category of instructional leadership, the overall standard, Dr. Marcus received 6 proficient and 4 exemplary marks from the committee. Under instructional leadership, they have curriculum. He got 7 proficient and 3 exemplary. In instruction, he got 6 proficient, 4 exemplary. In assessment, he got 7 proficient, 3 exemplary. Evaluation, he got 6 proficient, 4 exemplary. And data-informed decision-making, he got 6 proficient and 4 exemplary. For management and operations, he received 7 proficient ratings and 3 exemplary ratings. For environment, he got 6 proficient and 4 exemplary. For HR management and management information, he got 8 proficient and 2 exemplary. For schedule management and information system, he got 7 proficient and 3 exemplary. For law, ethics, and policy, he got 6 proficient and 4 exemplary. And for fiscal systems, he got 4 proficient and 6 exemplary. The third standard is family and community engagement. He received overall 6 proficient scores and 4 exemplary scores. For those subcategories, engagement, he got a 6 proficient, 4 exemplary. For sharing responsibility, he got 5 proficient and 5 exemplary. For communication, he got 6 proficient and 4 exemplary. And family concerns, he got 5 proficient and 5 exemplary. For professional culture, he received 5 proficient and 5 exemplary. Commitment to high standards is one of those subcategories. It is 6 proficient and 4 exemplary. Cultural proficiency, 6 proficient, 4 exemplary. Communication, 4 proficient, 6 exemplary. Continuous learning, 4 proficient, 6 exemplary. Shared vision, 5 proficient, 5 exemplary. And managing conflict, 5 proficient, 5 exemplary. For the overall summative score, he received 7 proficients and 3 exemplary overall as summative scores. So individual members did on their evaluations leave comments, but I want to open it up to if anyone wants to address their evaluation or any particular thing, one of those categories, or their overall impression of Dr. Marcus's performance since January. So, Mr. Boyce?
Yeah, this has just been such an overwhelming time that I don't think a lot of us could have wrapped our heads around what we were going through most of that period. But John, to find you as not only that pot of gold, but your continuing of evaluating and reevaluating every single thing that was going on, going to schools, meeting with teachers and students, talking with parents. It's mind-blowing. I really wish you were on. Obviously, I was from that original committee that brought previous superintendent forward. I could talk to Mr. Trotter and see through his eyes, because I know he was very fond of you and knew you, and your connections are just amazing. You know things, you know where to turn for things, and then you brought on Matt. I mean, you brought in a great goalie. It's always my hockey thing, but I couldn't thank you enough, and I'm so appreciative. And to learn so much more about you, it shows in your work and in your mannerism. I don't know how you kept your cool. You just did remarkable.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hill?
Yeah, I need to echo what Steve has said. I had very little expectation for somebody coming in the circumstances that you came in, and you were above and beyond, and you stabilized our situation. You made sure our kids had what they needed. I know there were a lot of tough choices, but in the end, when it comes to our kids, you did what was right, and you were focused. And I want to thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Marks?
So I spent a lot of time talking to, parents in the neighborhood and parents at different events that my kids were at. I got nothing better to do while they're off running around having a good time. I might as well talk to the other people. And to a person, I haven't heard anybody that I've spoken to have anything even neutral to say about the job that Dr. Marcus has done. It's been universally positive, and at points, oh my God, I can't believe that we went from X to Y. You know what I mean? I wanted to call out something I wrote in here. I've always been a sports guy, and there's a stat in sports called wins above replacement or value above replacement player, and it was something I talked about in the evaluation. Dr. Marcus was asked to do something that as recently as January seemed impossible. He had to stabilize a school district that was spiraling out of control. Financial situation was dire, opaque, and the community had very little trust in the district's willingness and ability to resolve it. A pack full of rightfully angry parents and teachers, news cameras, and students demanding simple answers to very complicated questions. Dr. Marcus came in and helped to slow the bleeding, start rebuilding, and did so with a culture of transparency, collaboration, and in improving community trust in the process. 7 months later, I struggle to believe an average leader could have accomplished a fraction of what we've accomplished so far.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they want to add to the evaluation of Dr. Marcus? I think you did an okay job, too.
I think you're an okay chair.
You're all right.
So,
I just want to add one
oh,
thing.
yeah.
One thing that I like to see what you're doing is to work with everybody and include everybody and not excluding people and the administration, to work together to do what you had to do. and not just think that you could do it yourself, because you knew you couldn't with the amount of work there was. So that's what I like to see, inclusion type thing
Thank
with
you, yeah.
everybody.
Thank you, Beth, that was really important.
Okay.
And my commitment has not faltered. When I sat here for the first time on January 7th, 4th, and I read a statement that said that I'm going to give everything I possibly can because I really care about this place. While it's, it's a year that I'll be retired, I don't care. I'm going to keep going until you tell me to stop. Because the people that I've met, this committee, the teachers, the administrators, the families of this district are incredible. And so it is absolutely my pleasure to stay up till midnight every night and do what I need to. Sorry, because Miss Craig just keeps telling me, she texts me and says, stop it. So,
Okay, all right. Well, I think looking at the scores, obviously they're all proficient and exemplary, so I think even for the community members that are not able to be here tonight, I think that they would share the sentiments that have been shared by the other members here based on their evaluations of you. All right, so now that we've properly evaluated you, you can update us.
sure.
As part of item number 3, superintendent update.
And remember, we're watching.
That's right.
We're ready for
Oh,
the
I just want to say
next
too, so we will set up a time, probably, I'm going to guess in October, a meeting where you can present goals for us
Yes.
for this year, so that we'll have those, so that when we do our evaluations in June, you will have presented goals to us that week, because we had to kind of skip that part for this, because of the situation. But he will be presenting goals with us probably next month.
Yeah, and I'm mostly through, or halfway through, my draft. And they revolve around the same kinds of things that we've been dealing with in terms of financial stability, dealing with enhancing curriculum, enhancing communication, things like that. So for now, just a few important items. One is that I wanted to share with you all a figure. I put it into, I meant to put it in the packet, and I don't think it got there, so I will send it to everybody. But our enrollment, thank you, sir. So I wanted to just highlight the enrollment at the beginning of the year, and we'll probably do this a couple more times over the course of the year as it changes. Right now at preschool, there are 109 students. There are 8 more in the queue just as we speak. So probably before they start in a couple weeks, it'll be up to 117, 118 in that range. Last year, I'm not sure if you remember, we ended the year at 120. So we'll be at that number within a few weeks. There are 13 sections, 8 for younger kids and 5 for the 4-year-olds. At Conley, can't quite see, I pulled up my own document. So at Conley, there are 495 students currently. There are 4 sections across each grade level, so you basically want to hover around 80, and they are, other than grade 3 and 4, which are both a little bit higher, at about 90, 89 or 90. So the class sizes there are a little over 22. The rest are in the 20 range. Kindergarten is creeping up at Conley, and Mrs. Downey and I have talked about at what point do we start getting creative with that. So we're looking at that, but they're up to about 20. They're at 21 in 2 of the sections, so we don't want it to get much higher than that. Duval is at 432 students. There are 4 sections across, other than 4th grade, which is that inverted bubble section that we've had for a while, at 3 sections. Everything else is 4. We kept the kindergarten at 4. That number's off. There are now 67. So they're at 67 So that's a pretty low number. I'm hoping that that comes up and gets us into the 18 range for that. But that's the current figures. Indian Head is at 468, so that's a little bit lower than it has been. It's hovered more at like 500. So that's a little bit of a drop, and you can see that both kindergarten and first grade, where they're usually around 100, there's a little bit of a dropping trend there. I'm not sure what that's about. We can look into it further, but you can see 108 in fourth, then 101 in third, 92, then 86, then 81. I think their kindergarten numbers are also going to go up, and they have 5 across the board, so that's something that we're going to be looking at as we go into FY28. Hanson Middle is 432. It's about the same as last year, and the section numbers are about the same. And Whitman Middle is 489, which is also about the same as last year. And of course, that big change is going to happen next September, where that column that's blank right now for 5th grade will include the 83 and 78, the 89 and 55 4th graders coming in to 5th grade. And the 5th grade coming into 6th grade. So got 2 sets of kids coming in. So that'll be a much bigger number soon. And then the high school is at 957. Last year, we ended at about 970. So about 13 less kids at the moment, but that also fluctuates, goes up and down. The shift is in that smaller class, the 209 is the juniors. And that has been traveling, so that's not really the shift. The shift was the seniors going out was 252, I think, and the freshmen coming in is 244. So that's where you see that that slight drop. I also included, I'm not sure if you had the numbers before, but the outplay students, there are 32 total. You can see spread out across different grade levels. So that gives us total, when I say in-house, so all those students that are in our buildings, 3,414, and a grand total of 3,446, which, following the trend, is about 50 students less than we ended the year. So we ended about 3,460, and we're at 3,414, and that has been the trend for the last 8 years, is, a little bit less each year.
So do we generally see, or say last year, from the beginning of the year to the end, do we see students entering more than exiting?
That's a great question. Yeah, we definitely saw a slightly upward trend.
Overall,
So,
right.
yeah, so 3414 will probably, by the end of the year, will be 3425. It's not a huge jump. And the big increase typically is at the elementary level in the families who have not registered yet. Believe it or not, a week to go. And last night, I was here till about 6. I probably got 3 phone calls between 4 and 6. Hi, I haven't registered. Do you know? Okay, so that's, I think, where you're going to see the biggest is in the next few weeks, and then you'll see it sort of bounce up and down over the course of the year with that slight uptick.
So can I, just a follow-up question. So as we see that, particularly in that area, have we left classroom size, space for classroom sizes to be appropriate?
Great question. I think in most places, yes. As I said, the one grade sort of area right now that's a little concerning is the Conley kindergarten. Everything else is fine.
Thank you.
And they have higher numbers in like 3rd and 4th, but when you're up to, you're at 90, to add a 5th section at 90, in 4th grade, you're going to drop from 22 down to like 17. And we don't have the budget for that, so.
Ms. Stafford?
Yeah, just a point of, just to add to, that this is not unusual. Like in talking to friends who live in different districts. The same thing is going on everywhere.
Yeah.
The population has just gone down.
Yeah,
and
thank you for
school
saying that.
population. So I don't want people to think it's just us. It's not. I have friends who live in the western part of the state, same things going on with them. Everywhere's seeing the same thing, so.
There's a great report, thank you for saying that. There's a
You're
great report that came out from DESE in the spring. I hesitate to say what the percentage is, but it's shocking across Massachusetts, the decline in enrollment across the state, so.
It just, we do see, when we do see increases, just because it's so expensive to have kids, we're seeing them in Brockton. They had a big dip and then they shot up. We're seeing huge increases in New Bedford or Salem. And that's really where families are ending up because they can't afford,
Yep,
a lot of families
Right.
can't afford. So that's kind of a shift more than.
yeah.
Mr. Marks?
I guess, the secondary question that I had, kind of bouncing off of Beth's point here was, we're not seeing a decline in enrollment in-house versus a market increase in out of
No.
district placement.
That's a really good
That's pretty linear. It's pretty much the same. It's just the overall is going down,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
So we're not losing,
no.
we're not losing students to out of district placement. I mean, obviously out of
Other,
district.
yeah.
We're not losing enrollment that way. We're losing enrollment because there are less kids. My son is one of the 209 in the junior class, and I remember at the time, everybody was like, "Wow, what happened here?" Just wasn't having kids that time,
Right.
apparently. So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what we're seeing now is an overall decline in the number of kids available in the area to join the schools.
Yes, and I would say, I think that's true, but we've had conversation at this table and in the subcommittees about how do we continue to build back trust and what's great about the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District so that people aren't feeling as compelled to go to an independent school or a charter school or whatever, that there are wonderful things happening here. So I think that we can't forget that, but it's not, the decline is not a result of people being dissatisfied. And,
Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Blackman.
Do we have any ideas about school choice numbers, students coming in versus students going out at this point, or is that, I'm a little
Yeah,
preemptive about
I don't
that?
have it handy right now, but I can absolutely get that and send it to the committee.
Great, thank
So,
you.
yeah, sure. Okay, oh, sorry. And then, okay, so along with updates, there are several new committees and a new initiative that I wanted to highlight. As we talked about in the spring, we'll be forming a school start time committee in the next couple of weeks, where I'll be gathering community members, students, to really examine our school start times and how they're working and how they're not working, and what are the leverage possibilities in terms of making adjustments that might better meet the needs of our kids. So that's one. Another is I'm forming a building use committee. Initially, it was really about preschool, and it was sort of a preschool committee, because what are we going to do with preschool given that the numbers are expanding dramatically? We need more space, and there's sort of a general idea that when the fifth grade moves out of Duval and Conley, there's the open space, and so preschool just kind of moves over. It's way more complicated than that. It's not like, oh, there's 4 rooms here and 4 rooms here, and so we'll put the 3-year-olds here. And there are so many other factors involved in how preschool should look and could look for our district. And when you sort of take that as the sort of key factor, or the sort of impetus for the discussion, and then think beyond just where is preschool going to go, but what are we going to do with Duval and Conley, and that they have 4 or so extra classrooms? Not just like, oh, it's just going to be preschool as an assumption, but what else could we be doing that benefits the students, benefits the district in some way, that's financially effective. And so it really became a bigger idea about how are we using our buildings. In conversations about, the preschool, we talked about some of these sort of big ideas about, redistricting and reshaping Duval and Conley in a very big way. And we've also talked about some cool ideas about the high school. Thank you to Mr. Farrow for that creative idea, and the fact that we have the Smart Center taking up 2 classrooms and the technology department taking up 2 classrooms. So is there something that we can leverage there in order to make preschool work better, and how do we use that as a way to sort of be more efficient and more effective? So at some point soon, we're going to need to have this committee get up and running. It's a superintendent committee, not a school committee, subcommittee per se, but obviously I'm going to ask for the school committee's participation in that. And then there is a PD, a professional development committee or team that we formed last year. It's an incredibly important group because professional development is being done in a very sort of different and creative way this year. That team is continuing on from the spring, and they're going to be working hard. I'll be working with them to develop how professional development for all staff is going to be looking. So that's up and running. And then we're going to have curriculum reviews. This year and the next year, we're running to the end of some of the curriculum that we've owned for a while. From the book version of iReady, not the online piece, but the book part of that. HMH is our reading program at the elementary. Things like that are running out. And so, believe it or not, this year we're going to have to be looking at some piloting and teachers testing out new curriculum in math, ELA at the elementary, and then...
And science at the elementary.
Thank you. So we have a lot of work to do, and it was all my intention, just so you know, even though I'm a hard worker and I love you, Mom and Dad, that you gave me that sort of fighting spirit. I was really looking forward to handing that over to the next superintendent. But we don't have time for that. So those are committees and work that's going to have to happen this year in order for us to be ready to implement new curriculum in the next year or so. And then we have an initiative, many thanks to Ms. Blackman, who in one of our conversations talked about, we used to have this after hours enrichment program for adults, and we talked about different things. I was telling her about how in Sharon we have the whole community education program that makes a lot of money and all that stuff, and bless you for sort of keeping on it. We sent out surveys and got about 24 people to respond, saying that they'd be willing to run an evening course, and so we are having that proceed. We're moving forward with that, and it's really exciting. It's a kernel, I think, to start to this fall, because there are tons of other things going on, but without losing the energy that we put into it to sort of keep it going and run 4, 6 something courses, and see how that goes, and hopefully that builds over time. But many thanks to Ms. Blackman for keeping on it and keeping on me. And finally, as I mentioned, it's I talked about the theme for this year is the Year of Engagement. And it's really about thinking about yourself for a moment, and for all those watching. Remember when you were a student in kindergarten through 12th grade, and think back to a teacher who made you feel seen, who made you feel special, who encouraged you in some way. So the Year of Engagement starts with that. How do we make sure that every child feels connected, feels engaged with school, and how do we, as educators, support those students, and how do we make sure that learning is also engaging? And that we're not doing it because somebody told us to, but we're doing it because we are learning about our kids and know what is going to elicit the most amount of learning. So that's happening, and we're kicking that off on Monday. School committee is absolutely welcome to join us, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that theme with the staff. And I wanted to mention one final thing. We have a new partnership with a program called My Friend Ben. My Friend Ben is an organization that connects folks who are in financial need with a variety of different services across the state. And they reached out to us, and we spoke with them last week, 2 weeks ago, about what that would look like. And so we're going to start including, there's not a lot of heavy lifting on our part other than advertising, here's a resource that you can go to. So I'm excited for that partnership, and you'll see that in the newsletter and things like that. So, sorry, that was long.
Stafford.
Hi, Dr. John. I have a question for you. Could it be possible that when you have some of these PD for the teachers, that you can let us know what they are and what the
Sure.
teachers are
Oh, yeah.
learning, or what they're requesting to have more information? Because, yes, we're here for the students, but we're also here for our teachers.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
I'd kind of be interested in what kind of PD they're looking into now,
Mm-hmm.
and, different from years ago, and things that are
Sure.
important to them now too. I think it'd be nice for us to know that too, even a little,
Yeah.
quick little
Yeah.
snippet or something of each one would be nice.
Absolutely, I love that idea.
Right.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Marks.
So, first off, incredibly detailed update. I love everything I'm hearing, so that's great. A couple of things, the building use committee in particular, with the space that's going to be becoming available, and having to shuffle some things around and make space for new things. One of the things we had talked about in the before times, if we can call it that, was, going back to your point about how great Whitman-Hanson is, and trying to keep students here, what are some of the CTE programs available that we can, potentially bring back here and use as a way to, engage students who might otherwise look for some of those programs in other places. If we're talking about different ways that we can use the building, I think that's a really good point to start from. Like, okay, if we do have some of this additional space, what are some of the CTE programs we could use in a space like this, or perform in a space like this, or in some of the spaces that we have? So that was just number one. And then the curriculum review portion of it, I almost hate to bring it up, but I know we've gotten a lot of feedback as a committee, as a town, on some of the concerns about the iReady program and the online learning piece of it. I'm not here to say that, ditch the online learning and go back to books entirely, because I think that we live in an increasingly online world, and it's important that kids understand how that stuff works. But I think a review of that as part of the curriculum review would be super helpful.
And let me, if I can respond
Yep,
to
absolutely.
both points. So, on the CTE idea, one of the things that Dr. Jones has wanted to do, he and I talked about last year, if we had the money, we would have put this in as a proposal, is an education, innovation, career pathway. And if the preschool leaves, you lose that critical ability to work with young children. So that's one of the ideas is, why would we send them across town, and now I have to send high school kids across town when this is an idea that they've had for before my time, that education should be one of those innovation career pathways. So that is, believe it or not, one of the ideas about, is there a way that we can keep the program here?
That's great.
So, and then, do you mind?
No.
Okay, and then on the.
Just note it, that's all.
Yeah, and then on the second, I just want to clarify, and I don't think we've made this clear to almost anybody, the online portion of iReady we are not doing this year. So it's called My Path. The My Path is when the kids would do 5, 10 minutes a day, 40 minutes, 45 minutes a week. You know, it would be scaled based on their abilities and things like that. And it's both a financial, pedagogical, and I don't know, whatever decision that we are not going to be doing that this year. So the question would be from the committee, so then what are you doing instead? And the idea really is this concept of engagement and how do we better engage kids than having them on a device. Now we have the opportunity to have a human in front of kids, so let's come up with the creative, interesting, engaging things that we can do that, for some kids, let me just qualify that by saying, for some kids it did work, the path was great, and for the district overall, there were absolute improvements. It was a really important thing to do, but I think it had its time where it's come to a place where it's like, and hearing the community and all that, and the financial reality of, are we going to pay for that, or are we going to pay for a person? So, but it's important for folks to know that portion of elementary is not happening. So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hill.
Yeah, it was pretty much, when we're building this, are we primarily with educators like yourself and teachers building this? And I'd like some parent input, but people who are in the classroom would be, is that what you're thinking?
for the curriculum piece?
Yeah, for the curriculum piece.
Yeah,
How are you thinking?
It'll be, DESE now has a slightly new model of piloting a reading program. So in the past, you would have, you know, a group of first, you know, like a first, a second, a third, a fourth, and they would take the curriculum and they would pilot X for 3 months. And then a different group of people would pilot Y for 3 months, and a different group of people would pilot Z. DESE has a new way of asking for there to be more input from a broader array of teachers. The sources that we're allowed to look at now are much more limited than in the past. That we have to adopt what's called high quality instructional materials, HQIM, and the HQIM for the ELA programs at the elementary level, there are only 5 of them. So there are very few. So the model that they're asking us to use is to make sure that a broader section of staff have the ability to try out and test things and give their feedback, as well as it being a smaller choice. And of course, that's going to come to you all, right? So eventually, the curriculum comes to the school committee anyway.
And the review of that curriculum.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Ms. Blackman.
Just curious, the fabulous program, just, you know, presentation that the kindergartners did with their amazing teachers. I want to say Y-Fly, but it's not Y-Fly, it's something along those
U-Fly.
U-Fly.
Yeah.
Hey, I was close.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that a program that expands beyond the kindergarten, first grade
Oh, yeah.
level? So that's something that will be one of the programs that they'll be considering?
U-Fly is already in process. We already own the program, and we're using the program across the elementary.
Okay,
So-
so that's kind of the reading component
It's a
of it.
piece of it. It's a
Okay.
piece of it. Go ahead, Mr. Farah.
U-Fly is a supplemental program, first started out at the University of Florida because most reading programs had a problem with phonemic awareness of phonics. So U-Fly was actually developed by the author, I'm going to say James Clayton, but it wasn't him, but if I said the author's name, you don't know. And then he was the one that developed it all. So we use that. We're Haggerty in the preschool and kindergarten, and then we move into U-Fly. But it's a phonemic awareness program that was basically designed to fill in the gaps in what takes place in those reading programs. So we'll still use that, we'll still keep it, and then as Dr. Marcus and his team move into the elementary curriculum sphere for new curriculum, that will always be the thing that starts it, moves on, but you still need a foundational reading program for literacy after
I vote for bringing back SRA kits. I really liked those a lot.
Yes, all right. Did you say yes, all right?
PTSD
Oh, gosh.
on that one.
Yeah.
I will tell you my olive and gold story about SRA sometime.
Oh,
Mr. Marcus?
good on SRA.
And just the last thing I just wanted to touch on real quick, I love this concept of the year of engagement. It goes back to, again, the concept I was talking about earlier about, you know, we live in an increasingly digital world where it should be easier to reach out and talk to anybody anywhere in the world, and yet we find kids in particular, but young adults all over the place, increasingly isolated and not engaged. And so I love this concept of thinking about how do I reach out and grab the attention of these kids, you know, how do we get kids who would not normally necessarily sign up to be in clubs because they're just kind of intimidated by the whole concept of it. Like, how do we bring that experience to them? How do we get you know, these kids into rooms that aren't just computer screens and phones and not interacting with the people in front of them, you know what I mean? So I love this whole concept.
Ms. Hill?
I just want to echo this, but it's not just kids. I mean, bringing adults back and utilizing this building, we've been pretty isolated. And, you know, how do we ask people to invest in a place that they've never been in? If they see this building and see how well the kids have, how great our kids are taking care of it, they're interacting with the community like that. We're also stopping isolations for the adults in our community as well.
Good point.
And to extend upon what Rosemary was saying, is you can get in that habit. I just done it for 33 years of check your email in the morning, you do, you know, and it's all humdrum. Whether you isolate, and it's an isolation too,
Yeah.
because, you know, you're in an office or you're in a cubicle or whatever, and bringing out other ways to just engage people. If she's working on SRA, I'm calling Scott Forsman. We'll get some stuff. We'll get the traditional going with the higher tech.
Also, just, you had mentioned the program of early childhood education or child care. A long time ago, we used to have daycare here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, it did bring in.
We did.
And Mr. Kelly, who started it, actually was out of Brockton. They had done it with grants. Maybe that's a
That's a cool
possibility.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah. He's still around, actually.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Marcus, for your
Thank you.
update.
Sorry that took so long.
Oh, no problem. It was all good stuff. It was,
Yeah, there's all of us.
there's definitely been some updates where I wanted it much, much shorter because everything was bad news. So getting a superintendent update just full of positive things is, I don't mind it being longer that way. And I will say that, to Mr. Boyce's point, I'm doing my part to try and combat adult isolationism by making you guys, doing all these subcommittee meetings I'm making you guys go to. So, you know, all out, making you come here.
I knew you had a plan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mission very much accomplished.
All right. Moving on, we are going to speaking of updates from our business manager,
Oh, excellent.
Mr. Wells?
Mr. Wells.
Ready to go.
I think we have some good news.
I have some great news. So in your packet, we've given you a one-page report. We're delighted to share that we were able to close FY26 and will not require the use of E&D funds to close out the year. So
I'm clapping.
Great job, great job.
on the bottom line right now, we have $7,619 favorable on the bottom line. Just keeping that there in case an invoice pops in that has to be paid off. The report shows that it's essentially closed. We have a few encumbrances that are still open. We're expecting invoices to come in for those. All the negatives and the projected, those are our journal entries that are currently being done to move the expenditures that hit on the appropriation budget to their correct lines in revolving and grant funds. So it's great news. It's fantastic. We don't have to tap into this. It was excellent work by the entire district team. Everybody stepped up to the plate, did more with less. We had, some great work from our central office team. George Farrow pulled $600,000 out of dozens of accounts, pinched it right out of there. Joey DePina and John Chenette did a great job just attacking this budget and attacking munis and making sure we cleaned everything up real nice. So there's more good news than that. That's fantastic that we're hitting at this point, but we also, not included above, is some unrecognized revenues that are going to come in. We just don't, some of them we don't know when they're going to arrive. So There was an FY26 supplemental state budget that was passed. We are receiving $100,000 for special education from that supplemental budget and $100,000 for facilities. We reached out to DESE on Monday, and they told us, yeah, we're aware of it, we're not ready to give you the money quite yet. So it's one of those supplementals can take time for us to flow to us, so it may not be recognized in our closing. So we're not using them to close it out, but we know that they're coming in. So the way we're gonna handle those is the expenditures of those are gonna be covered. The $100,000 for special education, that money's been moved to circuit breaker. The expenditures are there, so when the money comes in, it can just come in and very easily clear it. Same thing with the facilities. When that money comes in, the expenditures for those are being charged to the user, the building use fund. So when that money flows in, it'll come right in and it'll clear very easily within the revolving fund. So that way we can close out the budget, know that those revolving funds are kind of anticipated where the money is gonna flow. We also had our end-of-year report amendment was done. The original end-of-year report that was uploaded early on January 13th had some incorrect transportation numbers in it. The later report that was uploaded about 5 hours later had the corrected numbers, but DESE had already pulled all the numbers from the report. So we got in contact with DESE when we received our transportation reimbursement because it was low. And through some conversation, we were able to get them to agree that with the amendment, we're gonna see about another $377,000 coming in for transportation reimbursement. That's gonna come in with the reimbursement that comes in for 27, so they couldn't give it to us now. So it'll come in the fall, half will come in the fall, half will come in at the end of the year. So that money is gonna clear directly into E&D when it comes in. We have no plans to use that money for anything within the next fiscal year. So it's a great way to take that, to boost our E&D, which is, there, but low. And this will bring our E&D from the 700,000 to up over $1 million, which is another great thing to have, to know that we have that. So we're starting to rebuild some of these revenues that we need to be able to support the district. And I'm very happy that we were able to kind of complete the year the way we did.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any comments or questions for Mr. Wells? Ms. Blackman?
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah.
I will just say that having memories of being in this seat for the first time back in December, I did not anticipate that we'd be saying that we'd be closing 26 without using E&D and or robbing banks. Like I was really so I just want to. I know you mentioned them. I want to commend you and the team. Also, I know George Farrow did a lot of work as well, and Dr. Marcus's leadership on this was obviously really key. I know that it's just very difficult work and very hard fought, but for a good result for our district. Mr. Rafi.
Just quickly for Mr. Wells, if I recall correctly, the revenue appreciation anticipation note that we took had a closing date in August to repay, correct?
Yep, that has been paid back. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. I think we paid it a day or two early just to make sure we hit the timeline.
Ms. Hill.
What was the interest, the total interest on that?
I believe it was right around 53,000 was the
Okay,
total
that's about right.
that we had to pay for that borrowing.
So that took up our extra for the poster.
Okay. I think it's a great news there.
I'm gonna, if I may.
Yep.
Sorry. Because I don't want to forget the fact that, and Mr. Wells knows that I am more grateful for him than just about anybody. But we can't forget the fact that part of why we're okay is the fact that there are 65 people who aren't here anymore. So that's a huge thing. That we're coming back and we're okay, we're stable, but there are a ton of people that we're not paying for anymore, and that's part of this. So we can't forget that we need to rebuild. We can't just say, okay, we're all right now. It's now time for us to figure out, and we've started, but I just want to make sure that we're clear that that's part of it. Sorry, doom and gloom.
Okay.
Yeah, but before you go, I think the public should know the experience when you walk into the office of the superintendent, that it is a ghost town up there.
It's empty.
It is very few people handling the work that is generally generally done by double, maybe triple what you would see up there. So I want to thank those people and echo what you're saying. We feel the loss.
Anything else for Mr. Wells before we move on? Okay. So we have quite a few action items to get through tonight. The first one is to vote to approve student handbooks. So I don't know if Dr. Marcus, if you have anything you want to add to that before, or if we can just...
No, you were sent the 3 levels in your packet. So elementary, preschool sort of connected to elementary this year, so it's a pre-K to 4 or 5, depending upon where you are, handbook. Then you have the middle school handbook, which is joint between the 2 buildings, and then the high school handbook. Dr. Jones provided kind of an outline of the changes that they made. The biggest change, as you'll see when we get to one of our other action items, is that shift in the law about restraint, seclusion, and timeout. So that had to be adjusted in the handbooks in order to meet the MGL. There are other sort of minor things, smaller changes, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Ms. Blackman?
I'd like to make a motion to approve all of the handbooks presented.
Second.
Second, yeah.
Okay. Discussion? I have one point that it does not appear to me, and maybe I missed it, that the middle school handbooks include the times of operation of those schools. The elementary school ones and the high school ones do say this is what time they start, this is what time they dismissed, this is what half day is. At the middle school, I couldn't find that when I was looking for it.
Okay.
So if we could just add that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good catch, Ryan.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Okay, great. All right, so next up is the superintendent search proposal bid. I think it was in your packet that myself, Ms. Hill, Ms. Sniffen, and Ms. Stafford met in July. We put together a proposal for bids to get an organization to come help us run our superintendent search. And then we met last week to look at those bids, and we only received 1 bid, which was obviously not ideal. You'd like to see multiple bids. I did want to kind of take a second. I had a little bit of a freak out on Friday about it. So I reached out to Dr. Marcus in the middle of the night, who then reached out to Mr. Wells in the middle of the night, because to make sure that we did everything properly, that we only received the 1 bid from Mask. And so the procedure, based on MGL, it's 30B, for procurement, for a regional school, anything that's between 10,000 and 100,000, you have to send out 3 requests to at least 3 qualified vendors for that service. So Matt sent me the list of the firms that he sent it out to, and he sent it to 6. So Mask was one of them, NESDEC was one, the Collins Center, the Massachusetts Association of Superintendents, School Superintendents, and then 3 places that I did not recognize. Maybe Mr. Wells can say it, but I think they requested.
Yeah, they requested it. They were out-of-state operations, and they didn't have any contact after they requested it. We sent the bid off to them, and no request back.
So those are MGT, Clovity, and PW Express are the 3 that were also sent. We received a letter from NESDAQ basically saying that they cannot at this time, basically given their commitments of their employees to their not member, the word wasn't member, affiliated schools. So affiliated school districts, that they are committed there, that they don't have the time to work with us at this point. So Mask was the one organization that did respond. I believe that their proposal should have been in your packet. The bottom line number is they are within the range of what we had put in our bid there. It's $11,500 is the fee associated with that. They sent us with a list of the individuals that they have working for them that will work with us. So what I'd be looking for is a vote to award that bid to Mask.
Motion to award the superintendent search proposal bid to Mask.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, so I will reach out to them tomorrow to, I guess, look at next steps and get them on board and see what we need to do. So we'll have some more information for our meeting on the 9th about that, and possibly have them come in and talk to us on that date. All right, more of me, I suppose, because Ms. Niffen is not here. We have been meeting all summer, the Regional Agreement Committee. Ms. Niffen is chair, I am the vice chair, and then we have Mr. Sean Kane from the Whitman Select Board, Mr. Frank Malisi from the Hanson Select Board, who is in the audience right there. He is also our new Hanson Select Board liaison to the school committee. I think he reached out to all of us via email over the summer. And we've been meeting pretty regularly over the summer to kind of see if we can iron out this regional agreement. There are basically 4 proposals that we as a committee have agreed upon as a committee to bring forward to our various committees and boards. The issues that we highlighted when we first got together in May, one was obviously transportation, another was capital costs, and the other was payment dates. So in our packet, there is the language of basically a transportation language for the new regional agreement, which basically says that transportation will be assessed as an operating budget, as an operating cost, and there will no longer be an option to break out what they call non-mandated busing as a separate assessment to the towns. That will all be included as part of the operating budget, and that will then break down all the, so basically the transportation costs will be, the Chapter 71 reimbursement we get will be subtracted from the total transportation costs. The remaining transportation costs will be divvied up per the enrollment method of, which is roughly 60-40 or whatever that percentage is year to year will be the way the transportation will be assessed. As to kind of smooth that over or get that kind of, Hanson obviously had issues with that because that increases their transportation costs from what it has been. They had asked if to make all school committee votes 2/3 votes. Hillary and I both pushed back on that, and working with Frank, we were able to come up with a list of certain votes that are all related to major budgetary issues. Since the budget is already by law a 2/3 vote, we felt that making other major school committee votes that involve basically large financial impacts on the 2 member towns to also require 2/3 vote. So these include things, I should probably have these up. But things like if we were to close a school, Hillary and I were talking because I think she had just moved to town and my kids were at the preschool at McQuon, and then the McQuon school was closed. I don't know how that happened or how that was decided, but obviously that had an impact on Hanson in a positive way because they had one less school, but there were costs associated with putting in the high school. So those are things when you think about closing a school or rearranging the grade levels in schools, things like that, making those 2/3 votes. Superintendent contract being another one, being a 2/3 vote. That's obviously a very large has a large financial impact on the towns. So that was kind of the compromise with Hanson in order to kind of get the transportation piece through. So that language is in there as well. So I guess I'll just kind of pause there to see if anyone has questions or concerns about that. Ms. Stafford?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
On one of the 2/3, it says to accept a municipal gift for educational purposes. Can you explain what that might be?
Yeah, Mr.
municipal
Malisi, we
gift,
talked about
so-
this. Do we have an example of what we were talking about with this? 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm,
it's, I just didn't, what's an
Yeah,
example
so,
of?
to be honest with you, that particular line item was there from the previous committee, that was there.
Yeah.
I would imagine that if there was some sort of, like how you guys have to accept donations of some sort, you
Yeah.
need to vote for that. I would imagine if, yeah, I'll throw it out there, if we donated a truck or something like that, so you guys as a municipality to the school district, that you would need a 2/3 majority vote. That particular item was there from the existing
I
past
figured it was, but I
RAC committee.
guess, yeah.
And we left it there because it wasn't anything of big concern.
Yeah.
We kind of mainly tackled the bigger concern stuff and left
I
the
know.
stuff that was easy on the
Yeah.
side, so,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Hill?
I do think it should be noted that every change that has been made is pretty much the statutory or basic thing that you see by law. So it really hasn't been a give and take. It's been a bringing back to the middle. The thing that's being given up and how we are structured with our votes are based on population. So essentially, a certain portion of the population is losing their equal voice in the matter. And I do think that needs to be pointed out. I want to say thank you for trying to keep that isolated to financial matters, because usually I think we're pretty much in line with how we move forward to that. But I do think it should be noted that to just get what you would expect with this, which is statutory, that's what it means, the basics of the law, Whitman will be losing, or Whitman citizens will be losing a portion of their power to the vote. Now, this shifts and changes. This is where I can't figure this out. This shifts and changes with population. So if Hanson grows, that's usually how you would see that shift and change, not through an agreement back and forth. So that's something I just wanted to make a point of.
Okay. Mr. Farrow?
Yeah, I just have a question from a detail standpoint. When you talk about a 2/3 vote, are you talking about, just for the record, are you talking about a 2/3 vote of the whole committee?
Yes.
Or a 2/3 vote of the people there that night?
It'll be the 2/3, so those things would always need 7 votes.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep, so it would be for the whole committee, so if it,
Appreciate it.
yep, okay. Mr. Boyce?
Thank you. The 3-year window, which I know I've seen you and Frank and so forth, and the others, that will be followed as well, right? I
Right.
mean, obviously,
Yeah.
that has been, up and down, seesaw,
Yep.
whatever, ignored
Yeah, so
totally or
let
whatever.
me explain, because
Yeah.
just so people know what you're talking about. There is language that will be in this agreement that we have put together that was there, I think, from the previous committee that did it, which says that per the agreement, every 3 years in September, the Hanson Select Board, the Whitman Select Board, and the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee have to put the regional agreement on the agenda in September, and they have to vote to affirm it again. So that if any of those member bodies have an issue, they can say, we have an issue with the regional agreement, and then the regional agreement committee will then be reformed to then address that problem if they can. But instead of it being, so it has to be, if there's an affirmative thing, we have to vote that we still are okay with the regional agreement every 3 years. So, Mr. Malisi, did you?
Yeah,
wanna add to that?
just real fast. So one of the things that the last regional agreement that we have was from 1992, and it had amendments in it, like Mr. Chelsea likes to say. It was typed up in a typewriter and then scanned on a Xerox machine. The 3-year renewal of the regional agreement is super important because we are doing this with a 30-year-old document. All this stuff is not going to be perfect, right? So what the anticipation is to make these kind of, I wouldn't say sweeping changes, but sweeping changes to this new document. And then in 3 years, we reevaluate as a community of all 3 essentially municipalities, Whitman-Hanson and the school district, to come together and figure out what's working, what's not working, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of the whole point. I always like to say that a good compromise is something that not everybody agrees with, and everybody kind of doesn't like that much because everybody's giving something and losing something, and so I just want to make sure that it's clear that this 2/3 vote is not just for the town of Hanson. This also goes for the town of Whitman as well. It's not just, so if the town of Whitman has a policy that they don't really agree on with the budget, if they get 3 of their members to vote against that, that's a 2/3 vote. While the town of Hanson requested the 2/3 vote, it's not just 3 members from the town of Hanson that are the only ones that are allowed to make that supermajority. So it's for the whole committee that's there, and I think it adds a lot of transparency and trust into the process going through, if it not pitting different communities against each other, so.
And I will say that looking historically, I think there's been one that I've seen, but most of our votes, when they are split, are not split along town lines. They tend to be split into a different kind of way. So it's really, to Frank's point, it's really not that, you know, Hanson is getting an extra vote in it. It is that there is, because that's just not that's not the way that it structurally has been, that we've had 6-4, where it's 6 Whitman versus 4 Hanson. But it does create a higher threshold, I guess, of consensus along these larger budgetary issues. Ms. Hill?
Yeah, I guess I want to clarify what I said. This is an issue of representation and taxation. When you have, because the way that we are allowed to have certain members and how we're divided is by population. So when we make this decision, we are saying one individual in Hanson, it has more representation in a school committee member. So I just want to be clear, each of us are here because there's a certain number of people in a town. That's why you have more Whitman representatives. So when we make these equal, or no matter how it splits out, because it isn't for town, it's ultimately representation for taxation. And that is my concern with this. Now, I want to thank the committee for bringing it back to a true region, or to the statutory. That's hard, it was a complicated, and there's more to go, because we haven't really handled debt, and that's going to be a real tough one. And but I also want to point out that in the old document, we also had, we were supposed to review it every 5 years, and I think, Ryan, you've gone over the differences to ensure that we do that, right? You've done some work on that. You've started to do some work on that. Maybe if you could speak to that portion, what's going to ensure, because we were supposed to renew this every, 5 years in the last one, or?
I don't know if it said that. I don't think it said that in the, I don't know.
It did, we had.
I typed it, so I literally typed it out from the document to a Word document over the last 2 days, so I've looked at everything.
In the old document?
In the 92 document, it doesn't say anything about looking at it every 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So
I did type it out too. It did have a portion that we were supposed to go back and be renewing it every certain time.
Yes,
It was
Mr. Fair.
requested in 2017. I believe it was requested in 2017.
Was it the 2017?
Yeah, went to towns. One town said yes, one town did.
Yeah.
Okay, is
So the
that
92
the
document-
one that we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was a request in that.
So the
Okay.
92 one, so the last agreed upon, which was in July of 92, does not have that language in it. This one does, and it says every 3 years, and it says that
It has
the
to be.
select boards and the school committee have to put it on their agenda
you.
in
Thank you
September
very much.
every 3 years. So, presumably, this is going to this will be a process before it gets, obviously it goes to us, it goes to DESE, it goes to the 2 towns. So let's say that it becomes effective in 28, then it'll be 31, 34, 37, it'll go on the agendas. And hopefully it works, and we just have a vote, all the committees say, like, we looked at it, we're fine with it, it's working well, and we can, but then at least there is a record of vote that says that we have looked at it, we have approved it, as opposed to now where, like, there's a lot of things that, as we've been going through it, and as I've been going through the 92 document, that I'm like, we haven't been doing things the way we're supposed to be doing them. At the very least, we'll have a vote that says that we've looked at it, and that we, even if we end up just approving it by rote every 3 years, we're saying affirmatively that we are supporting the agreement as written. So, Ms. Blackman and Mr. Boyce.
So I'm good with the first page of this.
Okay.
Are you going to talk about the second page, or should I just jump in on the second page?
Which one's, I don't know what's on the second
So
page.
The second page is
capital?
the capital
Okay.
and the times of payment.
Yes, okay. So
So-
I'm going to move, I wanted to just do this conversation, then we'll go to the capital piece. So,
Okay.
Mr. Boyce.
I just want to know if attorneys have been involved in looking at this.
Not yet. Nope, so this is-
Town or
Nope, so
regional
this
or-
is, our thought was kind of like, attorneys are charging hundreds of dollars an hour. So instead of sending it to the attorneys to look at and then having you guys look at it, be like, thumbs down, no way, we would do it. This is not a final vote anyway. This is just basically like kind of a check-in to make sure that, that in the event that you know, this does pass the lawyers and does pass through DESI and gets approved, that you guys know about it and are okay with it so we can proceed on the path that we're on. So this is not the final, obviously, vote for it, but it didn't make sense to me to do this with the four of us, pay lawyers and wait for DESI and then not have you guys looped into these kind of substantive changes, so. Okay. Mr. Marks.
I'm sorry, no, go ahead and do part two. I'll ask my question at the end.
Okay. Gonna make me wait. All right. So the next part is capital. As that was obviously a major issue for us this spring. Reading through the 92 document, the shared cost of the high school and what we're adding to this language, and I think we added it. I think we added high school and district-wide, but district-wide expenses, Ms. Niffen brings up the case a few years ago where the district ordered smart boards for all the schools. Whitman paid for it in the spring, so Whitman schools got their smart boards at the beginning of the year. Hanson paid for it in the fall, and they had to wait. So it was inequity that the Hanson kids didn't get that technology at the same time. Obviously, we had the issue this year with our parking lot where Whitman had it on their warrant, but Hanson was putting on the fall warrant and trying to figure that out. But looking at the regional agreement from 92, it says the way that we're supposed to do the high school capital is that it is supposed to be assessed to the towns as an assessment with our operational assessment. And so that is the language that's in 92. We're not proposing to change that. What I did suggest adding, because I went to the Hanson Select Board meeting last month when they were talking about this. They were worried about, kind of like, I guess, losing control of the warrant process. Because right now, the way we've been doing it for a number of years, I don't know how it started and how long it's been going on, but we've been sending capital requests through the capital committees of the town, and then putting those on as articles on the warrant as opposed to assessments. The way the 92 agreement says it is that it should be an assessment to the towns, but they're worried, especially given what's happening with the Plymouth County assessments the next few years, how massive those unfunded liabilities are, that they don't have a lot of money. I went to the Whitman Select Board meeting last night. Mary Beth Carter gave a preliminary budget update, and without not counting the South Shore VOTEC building project, which right now is not funded in Whitman because the debt exclusion failed in the spring. They're doing an election in January to try again to get a debt exclusion to pay for it. So not counting that debt that they're going to have from South Shore VOTEC in the hopes that they'll get a debt exclusion to cover it, but not covering that just with their budgetary things, they're looking at about $1 million deficit right now. So I think the two towns are in positions where they're worried about, us just sending them bills for capital projects. So what I proposed was language which I think is probably just good partnership, is that we would work as our Operations Capital Committee would work with the capital committees, the finance committees, the select boards, early on in the process in the fall with our capital needs to them, so that they have an understanding of what we are looking for, so it's not something that they just get as a bill when we send the assessments in March. And I think that to me, hopefully will ameliorate some of the concern they have that by bypassing our capital request, by sending them as an assessment, will take their foreknowledge of what those capital needs are, by saying that, no, we're going to share with you what our capital needs are early in the process so that we can collaboratively plan for this, so that when we send that assessment, we know that we know and they know that we're all working together, so that we're not constantly dealing with situations where we send assessments for operation and for our capital projects, and they get voted down at town meeting, that we can all work together, at least with the foreknowledge of what the projects are that we're going to be looking for in that spring. So, Ms. Blackman.
So, I'm a little concerned about an October 1st date, only because, like, Capital and Operations and Capital Subcommittee has not met yet this year. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we're going to have to scramble to put together a list of items is a little bit concerning to me. in addition to that, the fact that we're going to give it to them October 1st and then Whitman might put it on the, Springtown meeting, and Hanson's not gonna put it on until October.
It's an assessment, they have to put it on.
Okay, they have to put, they
We
would
send an
have
assessment,
to?
they have to put, the assessment has to go on the warrant. So what I'm proposing, because that's a concern they have, is that they lose control at that point, because assessments get put on the warrant by law. A capital request does not. So the assessment, capital assessment would be something, we would send them, it would get put on their warrant.
Okay.
So I think also the point I would say is, obviously now it is, I know it's August 26, October 1, but this is a document for
This
the
isn't
future.
approved yet. Yeah,
This is
the
not for,
future.
this would not be for this year, because this year, the agreement is still in its embryonic stage, right? Once this is agreed and passed by both towns and becomes the official regional agreement, we will have time to know that that's what the process is, and the Operations and Capital can plan. We will have hopefully done that work beforehand, so that we can plan with the towns, so that we are able to effectively get our capital paid for.
The October 1st date is in the existing agreement, so that's where that came from. It wasn't invented or whatever. It's in the 92 agreement, so it was a sort of a conscious decision not to change that. There's also a February 1st
Yeah.
a date that's in the 92 agreement. So to get past the capital thing, I think the idea was to include that language without changing a whole bunch of other stuff. But I don't disagree with you. It's a little weird, the October 1st thing, but it's in the agreement. And when I looked in MGL under 16B, it happens to show up there too, this weird October 1st thing, so.
Mr. Murphy, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Mr.
Just
Barrow.
as a point of clarification for future use, whenever all this gets passed, I think the committee would need to look at the why we have a subcommittee for technology and facilities if you're going to then collaboratively work with the towns to give them what they have. And I would just ask, are you dropping some of the power of the committee in order for friendly relations? And I mean that respectfully.
So I don't know that I would view it as taking power away, but I think the idea is that, the Operation and Capital Committee would do what you guys have been doing, or what we've been doing, which is prioritizing capital needs. It's just the idea of sharing that information with the towns.
Oh, maybe I misheard you, because I thought you said we would then work collaboratively from that time with the towns in order to see what we could prioritize. And in doing that, or we could see what we would assess. And in doing that, I'm only saying this from the 9 years I've been on that committee, you would then be, in my estimation, just one person, saying that I would just caution that what are you doing then to the subcommittee? Because we've done it, we've prioritized, we move forward, the committee meets, we move forward, we send it to them, and I'm all for giving them the matrix. They should have it to know what's coming, to know what we would sort of choose from. But my question is that I would just caution it of that piece of it, that's all.
Okay.
Point of clarification?
Yes, Ms. Heldman.
Okay, this is a point of clarification, and it goes into what George has just said. Under the law, any tool, and under any sort of regional agreement, any tool, including buildings, used for education and billed to the towns is part of an assessment. And we learned that last year, and it was something I tried to say before at the meeting. We had to put the busing in. It is part of the assessment. And I know there was some confusion on this, but capital is a tool that we use to educate. George just mentioned computers. One of the reasons we're separate is so that we can meet our obligations to the law to educate kids, and it's so complex. They have school committees opposed to selectmen doing that. So I'm curious how they were able to say no before, and how it was pulled out of the assessment before, and how that worked. Because ultimately, exactly what he said, these things are computers, are things that we need in the classroom. They're assessments. So how could they say, no, they have to put it on the warrant? They can argue it on the floor, and the taxpayers can say no. but I don't think that anybody else could.
I think because we were going through the capital process. So I think that by going to the capital committees and making capital requests,
Okay.
that was how I think it was. And I think that's not what the 92 agreement says we should be doing. I'm trying to bring it back to what the 92 agreement says, which is that it should be an assessment. I'm just trying to, because there's a lot of mistrust, I think, between, I think particularly the Hanson Select Board and this committee because of things in the past. I wasn't here for those things, but I think just saying that we will, proactively share our capital needs with them early in the process so they can plan for them is, I think, a way to, because I think that their worry is that, and they've talked about this pretty much every time I've talked to them, that they've talked about lack of communication between the school committee and the Hanson Select Board. Again, I wasn't here for that part. I'm not vouching for the veracity of that. That's the way they see it. That's the way they interpret it. That they feel like they weren't getting a lot of communication. This is just, we are going to pledge that we are going to communicate our needs to them early in their budgeting process. That's what the language is, and that's what I mean. To George's point, I guess working collaborative, I guess, is maybe a squishy term that.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I just.
Mr. Chair, can I address George's point?
Sure, yeah.
So during the discussions of the capital, there was no intentions of you guys being like, well, these are the 7 items we have. Which 3 do you guys think we should? That's not it. What the intention was to say, hey, we need a parking lot this year. It's $92,000. It's going to cost the town of Hanson. I'm letting you know now in October, so you have the anticipation that in May this is going to be something that you guys are going to be looking for. And at that point, the discussion can go with the capital committee on the school committee, and you guys saying, listen, we have the Plymouth County stuff this year. We really can't afford that. Can we wait until October? And then we can do a little bit. The problem with most of the capital stuff in the past is that there was so much process differences between all the towns and all the players in the game that it just never really cohesed together. It was more like oil and water than it was everything else. With this, it kind of gives us all the lines. So if you need a parking lot, you can come in October, say, hey, we need a parking lot, $95,000 it's going to cost. Whitman, you guys have it in May as well for however much it costs you guys, and then we can come together and fund it how it is. In the past, it just hasn't worked that way for process, so that's my only comment on that.
Ms. Blackman.
I'm also concerned that there's no language regarding a capital stabilization account for each town. Hanson does have one for the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District. Whitman does not, and they should be, in my not so humble opinion, each town should be committed to putting money into that fund every single year so that when we get a bid for a larger project, we have the ability to put a down payment down, which saves both towns significant money if we can lock in stuff. I guarantee that parking lot, if the school district ends up paying for it, is going to pay more for it this year than we would have last year. So the capital stabilization account, both towns, and it would be a continued, however you guys did it, whether it was a percentage of, E&D or percentage of, we're each gonna put in $10,000 or whatever it is every year, so that we have that in case there's a problem or something along those lines. And I'm feeling like Mr. Wells might advocate for that type of a thing, yes? Yes.
Stabilization funds are helpful to school districts, definitely.
Right, so I would really like to encourage the Regional Agreement Committee to consider adding something along those lines. It's common sense.
Frank and then Rosemary.
Yeah, so that's from my intention since I've been on the RAC. I've only been a selectman since May, so this is the first experience going on the RAC with this. I fully intend on using the stabilization fund this October. I asked the select board last meeting we had to put the any unused capital items from previous town meetings that Dr. Marcus has a copy from the town of Hanson for any unspent monies from previous town meetings that we could possibly reallocate from those and put into the stabilization fund, and any cash that's needed for the parking lot. I also brought up the idea of putting that in the October town meeting into the stabilization fund for that right reason. I completely agree with you. I feel like the stabilization fund is a good tool that each towns can use. We already have one. It gets funded sporadically, I'll say that, in a very political way, sporadically. But I intend to make it so, so that capital items, if you come to us in October and we have the time to do it, we would put that money in the stabilization fund for the May town meeting, so it's held there kind of in trust for the school district. That's kind of why we're making it so early in the process.
I would like to make a note on traditional school stabilization accounts are not done in the way that we seem to be utilizing them. There was one in Whitman and merged with the recreation. The traditional ones are contributed aggregately, that both towns meet that obligation, and they are controlled by the school committee. They are not controlled by the town. This is outside of standard law and standard practice, which tells me that maybe we need to look at a bigger picture of, are we creating stabilization or is this just control? And, you know, people elected school committee members to handle education, not selectmen. And if they want, you know, we can switch places, I guess. But this is, if you're not looking at what the students need, a stabilization account is used when it's urgent. How do you know how urgent it is to make that comment? I've heard a lot of comments before. Our devastating situation is, oh, the schools have so much money, so much money. Well, I would say that our presence on the news for not having enough money is a good indication that we didn't. So there's a lot of people making decisions and saying things that really haven't dug into the numbers, haven't looked at the situation, weren't looking at our E&D and our elasticity within our budget when they were making those comments. So I would encourage going back with the standard law on school stabilization.
Ms. Stafford.
I was just, in listening, you know, to a couple of comments here, and what Mr. Malisi just said too, we seem to have sometimes things that have been funded by the towns, that we haven't had to use all that money. So we always send a check back to the towns. Wouldn't that be nice to put it into an education stabilization fund, because rather than just putting it back into the town coffers, for them to put it into, or put it into a stabilization fund, you know, with that extra money, because every year we send money back to the towns. Because like I know with the playground at Duval, we didn't use all the money, we sent them a check. With this, you know, the roof thing that didn't happen or whatever was messed up with that, money went back to Whitman on that. So, you know, there's money that sometimes, to me, you know, still can be used, and those are capital items, so why, you know, couldn't they stay in the capital, you know, in a stabilization fund? That's just a comment.
All right, so Frank and then Ms. Blackman.
So by law, you can't do that in the current way we allocate to capital, because by law, you're putting in a warrant specifically for the capital item that's there for a certain amount from free cash.
Yep.
So if you spend $70,000 on a playground, for example, and you don't use the $70,000, you ask the town for a reimbursement for $65,000. That other $5,000, 99.9% sure can't be allocated to other purposes, since it was specifically allocated at town meeting for that particular purpose. So in the way that Mr. Trussell is talking about putting these capital items in the school budget, if you had extra items in the capital line in the school budget, then you could move it to a stabilization and so on like that. But in the way that, since the last 12 years that I've been in the school district, been working here, I've never seen capital specifically outlined in the budget as like an actual capital item other than the debt services that's there. So in the way that we do it now, that wouldn't work, but in future ways, I'm pretty sure you could go ahead and move that fund to another thing.
So, thank you. So a regional school district capital stabilization fund is what I'm referring to, rather than each town having their own that they actually control. This would be money that they would be putting into and committing to for the regional school district, and the regional school district treasurer would be the custodian of that account, just like we have for any other school district accounts, so that that money, and again, in case anybody's concerned, because it would be the money could only be withdrawn and appropriated through a 2/3 vote of the school committee. So, because it's, again, one of those financial things. So, again, it's just, to me, it makes sense for both towns to say, we are going to allocate this much money or this percentage of money every year to go to Whitman-Hanson's capital stabilization account that the district would then have on hand in case anything needs to be done, rather than having to come and ask each town to give us money out of our capital stabilization account. That's not the way it would be set up.
Do you have the law? Because that is the one and only law on school stabilization. So when we're talking about, I think my favorite line in a book was the Quagmire Regional School, and it was written by one of my favorite teachers. We were talking about teachers that affected me, and my brothers too. And he taught in this school. As we divert from standard, we start to create that quagmire, which then really creates the tension. We lose the balance of finance, and we create something different. So what Ms. Blackman is talking about is actually the standard law for school stabilization. So, which actually does it to the aggregate and is fair and appropriate and doesn't create what's called funding lag. So putting the tension too much on the poor one. Now, all of these things change. Whitman's growing, and we're catching up to being equal. So all of these things change. So when we build these things in that are not equal, right, as we shift, which we are finally, it used to say pendulum swung, but it didn't, but now it's beginning to. It shifts to the true ability to pay for something and our ability to serve these kids. That should be the primary focus.
Okay, Mr. Marks had his hand up.
Yeah, so I'll go back to the question I had before, because I think it applies here, and you know, Stephanie has kind of circled this topic for me a little bit. This page right here, is this intended to be the entirety of the changes made to the regional agreement? Or this is just kind of this is where we're at right now, we want you to kind of agree in principle to these changes before we have the lawyers and everybody else take a look at it. But there's still more discussion, still more changes to be discussed and put into place that would fulfill the current iteration of the regional agreement.
Yeah, so I think that these four things are the large substantive changes, like in terms of principle, right? And then there's language that will change that will reflect. So like all the other language will reflect these particular changes. So, but they're not necessarily, you know. So anywhere in the agreement where it talks about assessments, it will say that, you know, the assessment will be operation and capital assessment. So all the language that will then flow and follow these. These are the four kind of like, I guess, touchy subjects. And that's why I think I wanted to get, and I know that Frank is going to do this in Hanson, and Sean is going to do this in Whitman at the select board meetings, you know, get a, you know, looking for an okay to move ahead with these as the, you know, as the really substantive changes. So if you're, I guess I don't know if that answers your question. It doesn't.
Not really.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I'll clarify a little bit. So like, I think first of all, what you both brought here and discussed is a lot more digestible than I expected it to be. I understand where you're coming from. I think, you know, George brings up a really good point, but I also think that the intent of all this stuff is to create a partnership between the three parties, and instead of just throwing a bill at you for the May town meeting and saying, well, you know, I know you didn't know what was in this, but pay it. That's a tough position to put any town in. And so having this, you know, this October 1st of, hey, here's what we're looking for. This is what we want to share with everybody that we're going to be looking for in May. So we have some time to prepare. And I mean, Rosemary and I have talked about this before. Like, some of these things have taken so long to get to the point of presenting them to the towns that at a certain point, I understand why the towns are kind of like, I don't know what to do with this, because we haven't given anybody enough time to maneuver around and do what they need to do to get there. So great first steps, for sure. I guess my question is, like, I understand that these are the larger components that are the tent poles of the new regional agreement. Both, Ms. Black and Ms. Hill have suggested that we should be talking about regional agreement stabilization funding and this, that, and the other, and I love those ideas, that's great. Is the intent to then go back to the regional agreement committee and say, all right, hey, we've talked about these things are cool, we can work through these, but as unintended consequences of these or new discussion topics have come up, these are also things we'd like to build into that regional agreement. Or are we presented this document and saying, this is the changes that we're gonna make for this go-round, there's some minor language that needs to be corrected around it to make everything work and make everything line up in the new agreement, but all this stuff you're talking about is great ideas that we'll talk about 3 years from now, maybe.
So I think, well, I'll put it this way, like, obviously, like, this, we are at a slight disadvantage in the school committee because we took the summer off, largely. I mean, in terms of, obviously, we had a couple meetings to deal with pressing things, but we didn't have a meeting like this over the summer. The select boards had their meetings where they were able to bring feedback back to the RAC. Certainly, this is, if you're asking, like, like, is this it? Well, if you guys are telling me this is not it, then I have to go back to the RAC and say this is not it, right? Like, that's the way it's, one thing that just occurred to me too is to Ms. Blackman's point, so the school stabilization account is an account that we have, that we could have, is what you're saying.
Yes.
It would be our control. We could, in theory, could we put, as part of our capital assessment, money that could go into that, as stabilization, does it have to be for particular capital projects?
It's got it has to be the over $10,000, 5 year.
Okay.
So,
But we can create that type of an
Yes.
account.
Sure.
That we could say each town is obligated to X each year, so that builds up our account, so that when we want to do 5 parking lots at the same time, we would have money.
I will say, just to your point, and I think anyone could go and watch I think it was the July 29th meeting of the RAC. I brought up the stabilization account probably 6 or 7 times, Frank, probably.
Yeah.
And it was a hard, the Whitman delegation was a hard no on that. So we can go back to that, and we can, so I don't want to make it seem like I didn't approach that. And so what I'm saying is that I don't know that, obviously, we're gonna have a new town administrator in a week. Maybe that makes a difference, I don't know, but I think that is a block from the Whitman side, is that they do not feel like they can, at this point, they don't want to do an agreement where they are obligated to put money into a stabilization account. So, and that is, I understand that that's what we want, but I'm also saying that they, right now, there's nothing in the 92 agreement that says they have to do that. So we need to get their consent to add that to the agreement, and if they don't consent to it, then we don't get it either way. So I'm happy to go back to the RAC and try and work for that again, but I just want to be clear that that was something that they were not on board with, and I did try multiple times to make that suggestion, make that as a solution to this problem, which is that if they just contributed money, we would have the money and we could use it when we had issues, like we needed to have a deposit for the parking lot and what have you, all those things. Again, like I said, that was not something that's not something that was not broached in the RAC meeting. It was something that they were very resistant to. So I just want to be clear about that. And this was my kind of way of going around it to make sure, because right now, we do have the ability, it's in the 92 agreement, to send assessments, capital as an assessment. We also have, in the language of 92, we have the ability to make transportation as an operational assessment. We don't have to do it the way that we've been doing it. But I just want to be clear that I do think that unless the Whitman people are visited by 3 ghosts in the night, I don't know that their feeling about the stabilization account as being part of the regional agreement is going to change significantly in 2 weeks. But that's just
Chair.
it was brought up. So I think Frank and then Ms. Hill.
So to answer Mr. Mark's
Steve,
question,
yeah, Stephen.
To answer Mr. Mark's question, we're working off of the 2025 agreement that was given to the committee last year. And most of this is like, I'm not gonna say cookie cutter, but things like removing McQuan from references, or how the school committee was originally split up in 1991 when they had that transition period, you know, when it was a 5-5, then it worked over to like a, you know, a 6-4. But the items that you have in front of you are like what Mr. Trussell said, kind of the negotiation points of what everybody was really there for, the transportation from the Whitman side, the 2/3 vote from that, and the capital from the school committee side. I just want to also, you know, the committee, the RAC committee that we have right now, I've watched some of the ones in the past. The ones that we have right now, we work really, really well together. Like, we have been going through and really dissecting each piece of this to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the situation that we're in. And the biggest part of this agreement is the 3-year approval of this, right? Because I want to make sure that all the work that the RAC committee is doing and all the work that the school committee has been doing in the past year and the towns and the situation gets better. I don't want to make so many changes at one time and push it to the town that they're like, whoa, like, we're going to stop this and kind of throw it back. You know, the stabilization fund for the school is a perfect idea. You guys have the ability to create that. Now, how you fund it can be a discussion. If you guys want to go through it and, you know, the next regional agreement, we can start negotiating about how much of that is actually being funded through the regional agreement. That's completely like an acceptable thing to do. But the way that it is right now, and we've met quite a lot over the summer about this, has been flushed out really well between everybody, been brought to at least the Hanson Select Board and the Whitman Select Board multiple times to say, hey, what do you think about this? What's the feedback from that? And so on and so forth. I'm not saying feedback's not welcome, but I would say big changes like, you know, forcing the towns, either towns, to start funding things when you're already forcing capital items into the assessment when precedence wasn't that way. We haven't been doing that for at least 15 years. I would just be wary of that. That's the only thing that I would say. Whether it's the Mass General Law or not, we haven't been following it in the last decade and a half. So just, that's the only thing that I would say about that.
Okay. So Stephen, then Rosemary. Stephen had his hand
Yeah,
up.
oh, sure. Thank you. So I'm just trying to understand, we went and Ms. Hill and Ms. Blackman were very clear about us having the capital stabilization account, us,
Yep.
Whitman-Hanson. And it doesn't make a difference, and not to ignore Frank or anything, but it doesn't make a difference if Whitman had one, if Hanson does have one, or anything like that. It's just, we would have that. Is that, are we off of that, or?
So I think
We don't need to refer to Hanson's, whatever stabilization.
So I think the point is that we can establish a capital stabilization account at the school.
Yeah.
And the question becomes, how do funds get into that? Now, one thing is, I think as Frank said, was that if we send assessments to the towns for capital and there is left, like it's $70,000 for a playground, we spent $65,000, that $5,000 can then be moved into capital stabilization, I understand. If it's through an assessment, correct?
So kind of. So if you have a town meeting article that that you allocate a town meeting for $70,000, and you only spend $60,000 that, you ask the town for the $60,000 worth of reimbursement. The town then, at another town meeting, has to essentially claw back that additional $10,000. And at that point, once the clawback's there, it takes an additional town meeting article to place it into stabilization. So if you had, clawback of $20,000 or the $10,000, excuse me, and then the next article was to put it in stabilization, but that failed, the clawback would go into the general operating budget of the towns, right? So you can, there's a lot of trust in partnership there when it comes to that, right? So if the town's saying, hey, if you don't use this money, we're going to claw it back and put it into stabilization for the school district, right? And they don't do that, that's in a public meeting that they're saying that. There's a lot of mistrust that will happen in that situation. Creating the stabilization fund for the school doesn't need to be in the regional agreement. The funding source for the stabilization needs to be in the regional agreement. So you guys can create the stabilization fund under your budget, but funding that stabilization should be in the regional agreement, if that's the intention of what you guys are anticipating. But there will be there'll be a lot of questions about is capital going into the assessment because we're giving you money in the stabilization fund? And if you give capital to during your assessment, why would you have a stabilization fund if you're just going to give the towns capital on the assessment side anyway? So it just gets a little messy at that point, because then you're giving money to stabilization and you're assessing the towns for capital that you supposedly have a stabilization fund for. So it just gets a little messy.
Yes, I do think that we need to clear some things up, because some things have been said incorrectly. And the way the law works is meant to stop the confusion, and what we're doing is confusing, and what the law is meant to do is to make it unconfusing. Ultimately, we cannot create the stabilization account that you have. The only stabilization accounts that we can use, and we can refer to the business manager, are E&D and I believe circuit breaker. Those are the only two, and we can't have more than 5 million in both of those. We cannot create our own stabilization. That is why the law of this particular stabilization, that technically is the town's version. It's the only extension of stabilization that we can create is through that one law. And the reason for this is these things, and all of these things, should be funded aggregately. That means they have to maintain the aggregate, or you're going to throw off appropriate funding, which is the basis of how we fund education. This is part of the quagmire. This is why, how do you trust that? A slow, steady investment in that stabilization. We already have it. We could use our E&D. That's exactly how we got in the mess before. We were using E&D for doing lots of things that went above and beyond what should have been the towns over the years, things that went over 5,000. So if we would just use the standard structure of a regional agreement, what we would do is have an appropriate E&D, we would have appropriate use of circuit breaker, and we would also, as an addition for capital, we would have this separate stabilization account, which needs to be voted at the town level and the school level alike. That means it has to pass here, and it has to pass on town hall floor to create. We can't just create it separately. So just to be informative, go ahead.
According to Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16G and
Unless the law
12.
changed recently.
Provides for the establishment of stabilization funds by regional school districts. So, I mean, again,
It has to be
I'm
voted
not,
Unless it happened
Okay.
recently.
anyway, my recommendation or my ask is that the Regional Agreement Committee look at the law and also ensure that there is some sort of funds being set aside, whether it's at the town level, at the regional school district level, that if there's something that comes up that, that we need to planfully plan on, like bidding on something, that we have access to funds instead of having to wait for town meetings. The other thing that I will just add real fast is I am concerned with the last piece about the dates that the payments are due, because the school district, as Mr. Wells just pointed out, we just had to take that short-term, the ban, short-term loan that cost the towns of Whitman-Hanson $53,000 in interest.
loan.
So, having payments due the second, fourth, 8th, and 11th month of the year does not make sense in any way, shape, or form. It sounds to me like we should have it be on, like, at least for July 1st would be ideal, and then we could work it out so that it's every 3 months instead of these random dates. I don't know how these dates came about, but that is a concern of mine.
Tax dates, right?
What?
Tax dates.
The tax dates, they are already 3 months,
Right.
except for the April one, which is 2 months, but August to November is 3 months, November to February is 3 months, and then February to April is 2 months. So, but that is around when the towns do their tax collection.
Can I just
Right,
ask
yep.
a clarifying question from Ms.
Yep, sure.
Blackman? So when you were talking, so would your intention be, let's say the school district created this capital stabilization fund, would your intention to be to have the towns put money in there during town meeting warrant and then also still assessing them capital items in the assessment? Or would your intention be to fund all of the capital items from that stabilization account?
So-
And the only reason I'm asking not to, I'm asking just so I can bring it back to my board and say,
Right.
this would be the intention of doing it.
So, I don't have the worldliness of being a select board member, so please excuse me for not understanding this completely, but you have, the town, each town has a capital stabilization account. Do all capital expenses come from the capital stabilization account? So therefore, I would expect that it would work the same way with the school district, right?
Yes.
So if the fire department needs a new pump for a ladder truck or whatever, I'm making stuff up, I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But if they need that isn't necessarily, that's a capital item, but it's not a capital stabilization account item. So the idea of the capital stabilization account is, first of all, if we really need money in a quick grab because an emergency happens, we'd have it. And then we can go out to the towns and say, hey, guess what? We had a major roof cave in and not gonna happen. You know, we had the money to cover it, but please reimburse us. But if there's other stuff that we know is coming up, then we would, you know, still potentially need to ask. Otherwise, we're gonna drain the stabilization account,
Yeah.
and then it just becomes a
So I
seesaw.
understand. So what you're saying is essentially the stabilization fund would be your first kind of catch-all, without draining it, of course, having it like an emergency, and then any additional, you go to the town and say, hey, I need an additional $60,000 for capital. We're gonna take X number of dollars from our stabilization and do this, and then we need an additional $60,000. Is that what you're anticipating, or is it more of like the opposite, like you go to the town still while keeping your stabilization as like an emergency fund in the back end?
So I'd love to say that there would be a minimum that would stay in the stabilization account, just so that if there were an emergency, it was there. But obviously, if we're gonna do 5 parking lots, that would drain the
Yeah.
money real fast.
The only difference here with you guys in the town is when you set that assessment, and if we vote down one of those capital items or that capital line item at the town meeting, your whole budget fails. So with the town, if the fire chief comes to me and says, I need a new fire truck, we can say, we can't do it this year, we're gonna do it next year. And if that fails, then it fails. You know, there's no real big impact for this. So I'm trying to make it so it's, and if that's a risk that you guys are willing to take, that's fine. But if any portion of your budget is voted down at a town meeting, the budget fails. So
But the October 1st date is when we're going to come and say, these are things we're planning
Correct.
on.
Correct.
In addition to these things we're planning on, please remember to put X amount of dollars into the stabilization account.
Yes, and that makes sense, but
Right.
I just don't, this committee's perfect, the Hanson Select Board, the Whitman's committees are all perfect, and the RAC committee's perfect right now, right? But in 5 years, 6
Right.
years, 7 years, it could be a completely different situation with a brand-new superintendent, right? So I just want to make sure that, you know, we have something here that lays it out in a firm way, that at least we have an understanding for the next 3 years that when we'll ask you to fund the stabilization, and if there's any excruciating costs or extenuating circumstances, we'll come to the town. But we'll try to use our stabilization first without draining it. I think that's a reasonable compromise.
Okay.
I just wanted to get clarification on that, so thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, TJ, and then I think we'll do Steve, and then we'll move on. TJ?
Quickly to that point, the state law caps how much you can assess to the stabilization fund in any given year at 5% of the assessment. So it's not going to be a huge number. To you, Mr. Chair, I guess if we're not going to vote this tonight, it's less important, but I'm just having trouble following for sure what sections of the agreement these relate to. So like the capital language, section 5. Section 5 is transportation.
That's, this is based on the 25 language that was put, that agreement, and I'll share that with the committee tonight. Some things just got moved to different sections, so this is part of it. So 5 is transportation in the 92, but it is not in the 25. It got moved. Some things just got moved around. So this would be in the apportionment of costs section. So it explains what operating costs are and then capital costs. So like, I think B might be operating costs of that section. I just took section 5, just the part that because I didn't want to overwhelm everyone with the whole document.
I don't think the committee has the 2025 amendments. like the 2025
We
version?
do, we got it last September, but I can send it again with the changes that we are proposing making to everybody. But we got it in September of last year. I think it was September 10th. But we'll do Stephen, and then I think we need to move on, so, and we
Yeah,
can
we're
bring
at
the stuff back to the.
8:27 PM.
Yeah,
Eastern Daylight Time.
Yeah.
I motion that we go another 15 minutes.
Second.
okay, all in favor? Okay. So what I guess I will ask here is, there are four things here. The transportation, the 2/3 vote, what are the thoughts of the committee on those?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion that we are okay with those two
Motion
sections?
to say we're okay with the 2/3 and the transportation.
That's, okay.
Discussion?
Second.
No, I think,
No,
we have a second?
But, okay, so what if somebody's okay with one, but not the other? So you're not.
Okay, so we'll do them each
All right, do
individually,
each one.
okay, so, all right, so we'll
I
do.
will change my motion. I will,
Okay.
motion to accept the 2/3 vote language.
Second.
All right. Discussion? All in favor? So, okay, that's 6, okay, so that
You got one.
carries.
And then one against.
And 1 against, okay. And then so next is, can I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept transportation language.
Second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, so that's unanimous, okay. It seems like the capital, there needs to be more discussion, I guess. I'll bring back to the RAC, and then I'll bring this back to us on the 9th, for our meeting on the 9th, with some new language for that. And then I guess the time of payment of portion costs, I just want to say that Dr. Marcus and Matt okayed these dates, as kind of a compromise from the current one, which is the 1st of August, November, February, and April. We wanted May, they wanted April, when we split it to April 15th. So can I have a motion to okay the language of time of payment of portion cost sections?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Can I refer to Mrs. Blackman? She had made the statement, is there something that through the chair, that you felt didn't work with that?
Yeah, Ms. Blackman.
I think that the towns, us waiting on the towns and costing the taxpayers dollars, the significant money by having to take a short-term ban potentially is a very bad idea, and I would really advocate for the RAC committee to consider July as a date. They would be able to plan on it because obviously, as this has been pointed out, this wouldn't be going into effect until 2028 probably. So they'd have plenty of time to say, gee, we know how much money we're going to have and we're going to portion it out as such so that that doesn't leave us short. So I would just like to ask the RAC to do that, but
Thank you.
we'll see what everybody else says.
All right, well, we have any more discussion on that? Stephen?
Just remove the, one of the two ands before the 15th of
Oh,
April.
okay.
And
We'll do that.
Spelling.
Double and, okay. No double ands, okay. So we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor of accepting the language? Okay, so 5 does not carry, so we will, correct, 5 is not enough, so.
It's the majority of who's here.
Is the majority of you here?
Yeah, this
Okay.
is a majority of who's here.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then are you just against or? 'cause
All
it's
opposed? Yep.
Opposed, yeah.
Okay, yep, sorry, okay, 2 opposed, all right.
Those who would abstain, right?
Did you abstain?
No, I
Oh, opposed?
agree.
Okay, all right.
That was a significant amount of money that we paid for just, not having, for borrowing.
All right, so I will bring that back to the RAC on the 9th, and then we'll bring it back to you guys 15 minutes afterwards. So we'll be coming back up here, down here for it. All right, so I've lost my sheet. Okay, thank you, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, Frank.
All right, so next item on the agenda is to vote to waive the second and third reading and approve policy JKAA. This is the timeout, seclusion, and physical restraint of students. I
So
know
moved.
Dr. Marcus, so moved.
Second.
Okay.
Well, wait a
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay. All right, so next up is the Mass Conference. Was there any abstaining? Was that unanimous?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
All right.
Steve wasn't here, but
He voted,
Mr. Boyce wasn't here
Steve
for that
abstained.
vote.
Steve abstained. Okay, we'll put Steve as,
Absent for the vote.
yeah. Is it abstention, bathroom break? I don't know what you put in the note.
Mr. Boyce had to step out, so he abstained.
Yeah, he abstained, okay.
Moving along.
All right, moving along, Mass Conference attendance.
I think it's majority of people here, right?
Yeah.
We had 6 out of 7.
Do we have a quorum without Steve, is what I'm
Yes.
asking?
Yes.
Yep,
6 is a quorum.
yep.
Okay, so, yeah,
Okay.
10, 6. that
All
would
right,
do math.
so the Mass Conference is November 4th and 6th. It's a Wednesday through a Friday. It is in the tropical resort of Danvers, Massachusetts.
Clearly, you've never been to Danvers.
I don't know why they changed it after.
But,
all these years.
so I guess, I put this on the agenda, just because there is an early registration deadline, which is next week, that is $125 less than the regular registration fee. Is there anyone that is interested in attending as a representative of the Whitman-Hanson School Committee?
Just a question,
Yeah.
is there a discount, because I might have to miss November 4th?
If you can only go 2 days, I don't know how that works. I think you just pay for the whole conference and.
Yeah.
Right.
You pay for the conference, the
Well, I wouldn't
hotel you
stay,
pay
I
less.
won't stay overnight, is what I won't.
So that's just a conference fee.
Yeah, the conference fee
Okay.
is, yeah.
I am busy one of those days.
Okay. So are you interested in attending the other 2 days? and
I
being
am
a
interested in,
representative?
just to go over legislative stuff too, so I am interested in that.
Okay,
And updates,
So-
things.
I can't go.
yeah. I would have difficulty attending myself, just because,
I will get the days to,
and if we need, so are we, is that all right with everyone if Rosemary goes as our representative for
Sure.
the Mass Conference? And we can register
Yeah,
her
I
next
can't go
week
this
so we
year.
can get the discount?
Yeah, I can't go
Yep.
this year. so-
Okay. All right, moving along. Okay, so now I think everything else is, well, I don't want to jinx us. Next up, vote to approve to the declaration of surplus materials, the math department.
Motion?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Steve abstaining. He's gonna miss so much stuff. Vote to approve the Whitman-Hanson Global Travel Program field trip to England and France.
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Steve abstaining again. Appoint the district physician. It is Dr. Belcher, correct? Dr. Belcher.
Motion?
second,
All right, any discussion?
Quickly.
Oh.
Are we just reappointing the same
We're
person?
reappointing the same person, yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, okay. All right, approval of meeting minutes for June 17th.
Motion.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye, unanimous. Steve. Motion to accept the,
Who's,
who was the second?
Chris?
Who's Chris?
Say it with your
can
chest,
I
Chris.
motion
Yeah.
to? can we
I'll
motion-
say-
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 24th. So
Second.
first by Rosemary, second by TJ. Any discussion? Ms. Blackman?
Just one note, on the second page, it refers to Beth instead of Miss Stafford, so if that just adjustment
Oh,
could be
give
made.
her the respect.
Well, everybody else has gotten switched over, so, you know.
Okay. All right.
Wicked
Okay.
diss.
All right, with the, all right,
I
so,
didn't, this is, that's not me, I don't.
all right, so we have a first and a second to approve the meeting minutes of June 24th with Miss Stafford as opposed to Beth.
It's Mrs. if we want to be.
Okay, all right, yep.
Mrs. Staff.
Mrs. S.
Yep.
All right,
My kids
all in
always say
favor?
Miss Stafford, they put it in one.
Okay. And motion to accept the meeting minutes of August 5th, 2026.
Motion?
Second?
All in favor, discussion? Give it, all in favor? Aye,
I
okay.
abstain.
Did Mrs. Hill, I don't think she, did you?
I said yes.
Oh, you
Okay,
did,
so.
okay, sorry, I didn't see
And
you
one
vote.
abstention.
You're too busy.
Two abstention, yep.
Steve is not back, and I also abstained.
Oh,
Oh,
Steve
Steve.
is here. Steve, vote for.
You missed like
Steve.
the whole meeting, Steve. We
August 5th.
approved like 17 things while you were in the restaurant.
It's 5-0, still passes.
all
Subcommittees.
right.
Okay, yep. All right, policy subcommittee, Ms. Blackman.
you guys have my notes from over the summer.
Yep.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. But we, Mr. Trussell and Mr. Farrow and Dr. Marcus joined in on a couple of occasions, and Mr. DeGravio was able to make a couple of the meetings, but we had first reads, a huge list of policies that we're asking for first reads on. Second read is the online learning policy that was originally presented in June. I will say that I am very proud that we have gotten through the immense number of policies that we have gotten through. Honestly, once Dr. Marcus and Mr. Farrow left the meeting last week, Mr. Trussell and I just bulldozed through a lot of them because they were pretty simple. In the packet, you'll see there's explanation of whether it was just legal references or changing his, her to they, or whatever. Some of them were more significant than others, but the majority were kind of clean.
If I have something that I don't really like, do I say it now or just tell you later so you discuss it?
You can certainly let us know if there's something, if there's a specific policy that you'd like us to revisit at our meeting
Yes.
next Wednesday.
I would. IJNDD, as far as the superintendent or designee will periodically conduct internet searches on the staff. Because is that a when, how many, who keeps track? That's very, to me, broad, and if it's that broad, should it be there? I mean, it's,
I want to point out that Ms. Blackman and I split on this.
yeah,
Because where there's only two of us, I had a similar concern with it as well.
yeah.
With that particular part of it, I don't think,
Yeah.
and so we decided, since there's only two of us and we couldn't, there was no tiebreaker because Glenn wasn't there, that we would just bring it to the committee and let the committee.
Yeah, well,
So I was gonna bring this up as just something that I think we need to,
Yeah.
as a committee, look at, because.
I'd like to, yeah, have more of a discussion on it
That's-
before we do any with that, because the amount of work and stuff, I mean, I just have questions of, there's just little things that sometimes, okay, so for instance, I'm going away, say I was teaching, I'm going away, and there's a group of us sitting there, and I have a glass of wine, and it gets posted. I don't post it, but somebody else does. So do I get reprimanded for that, that it get, that you pick it up and see that? I'm just saying, something, I think we have to be very careful about that. That's my concern.
What was
the-
Plus you're putting more on,
What was the scenario? I didn't, Beth, just ask Beth to repeat that.
Okay, yeah,
What
sure.
was the scenario you were talking
well,
about?
because they're going and looking at the teachers' intermittent, the Facebook pages. And, to me, it can, it's a blurred line. And who's gonna pick and choose what
What's
internet are you,
inappropriate.
what are you gonna, who's doing it? And how often are doing it? It's periodically. And it says superintendent or a designee. So, I mean, are you gonna tell, for instance, one of the elementary principals that I want you to check X, Y, and Z from your school? I mean, who's gonna determine that? That, it's too ambiguous to me.
Okay, Ms. Blackman and then Ms. Hill.
So we did have a lengthy discussion about this. It's a policy, so if we institute the policy, it is up to the administration to come up with the procedure for how often and who is responsible and all of that. So it was made clear that prior to hiring a new employee, they do an internet search. It could be that they would decide, if somebody brings an issue up, a
Well,
concern.
I think that would be
could
automatic,
be-
though. I think that
But-
would happen automatically.
But we don't have a policy about it at this point. Masks policy was much broader, I will say, than what the language that we're presenting here. But I get that it would strain resources
Yeah.
for people to have to do it. Does that mean it's not important to do? I don't believe that it does, that it means that it's not important. I understand that it could be a strain. However, it's up to them to determine what the procedure is and how often and who's responsible. If it's the team leader for each grade at the elementary school does a Google search,
But-
you don't have to look at each person's, give me your Facebook, your Twitter, your Snapchat,
Well, that's
your
what I mean,
whatever.
this is so
It's,
ambiguous.
it's a general internet search.
Yeah,
It's not it's not a go through and look at
I
everybody's.
just, where they have to check, and then if there's a problem, obviously, I'm assuming that administration would do that. But just to have it as a policy, to just randomly do it, I'm not agreeing.
All right, Rosemary.
I was next, yeah. Go back and forth. But, Beth I hadn't thought about it the way you're thinking about it, Beth.
Thank you.
And so now I hear you, like just a simple glass of wine. I need to understand the definition of improper, like, what is the standard? If that's an ambiguous standard, and then we have the person hiring and firing, that person, it could then be weaponized. It can then be used to get rid of somebody you just don't like. And the same, one person could have a glass of wine, and the other person could have a glass of wine. If you like them, they're fine. If you don't, they're not. So I think that some guidelines, thank you for bringing that up. I hadn't even ventured there, Beth.
So I just want to quickly say that I did look at neighboring districts and their policies on this. So some just have this because, and they have the actual, we made a lot of edits to the mask version because the mask version, first off, I think is kind of a mess because it kind of, just in terms of like the actual like syntax and diction, it just kind of is laid out in a weird way. And it combined a bunch of stuff that wasn't social media. And so we kind of simplified it to just focus on the social media portion of it and making sure that, for example, that reminding staff of, the importance of maintaining proper decorum online, digital world,
Yeah, I don't
et
have a
cetera.
problem with that
So,
part. I have a
but I
problem
looked
with
at specifically that line about the superintendent designee, and I will say that many districts change it to may periodically conduct internet searches.
Well, I like that better.
As opposed to, because I think the worry I have is not just what Ms. Hill is talking about, which I think is true, is she's looking at it from an administrative point. I'm looking at it from a parent point of view. Little Willie gets a D in English, and the parents go looking on Facebook and try and find something and bring it forth. And then the will periodically, because the question I have about the procedure part of it, because I understand, I agree with Ms. Blackman that we create policy and then the district, the administration creates procedure. But if a parent comes forward and says, let's say that they really don't like Dr. Marcus and they find, one of the teachers has a picture of something that doesn't meet with the employee code of excellence. And the question is, well, when did you're supposed to search it. It says you will periodically conduct searches. What's the procedure? How do we even prove, how do you prove that you've done a Google search? Like, how do you document that? There are things like that where I think that there is a responsibility on us as a school committee to create policy, but also policy that has attainable procedures.
Yeah.
And so that's where, so I noticed a lot of districts have that. I did talk to Sean Costello, who is our mask representative. He's also the chair of the Marshfield School Committee, because the Marshfield online policy has that line omitted entirely. So I asked him, what was that about? And he said that I don't always agree with mask policy, and we felt similarly to what I feel, which is that it creates a cumbersome burden because we have 600 employees,
Yeah.
roughly. And so the idea that any one of them could post something and that could be weaponized against
See,
us as a district if
I don't
we
like that
allow
line of the
that.
policy.
So that was where my concern kind of came in.
Yeah,
But
mine too.
I think that Ms. Blackman and I can revisit this next week at our
Please.
meeting. But I wanted, if you didn't brought that up, I was gonna bring it up just because we split on that as a vote, so. But turning back over to Ms. Blackman for those
Sorry.
first and second reading.
Yeah, so are there any other questions, comments?
That was
Yes,
good.
Mr. Rafi?
Sticking in the same area with GBEE and the personnel use of technology. I like the line about not giving out cell phone numbers or home phone numbers without prior approval from the district. Maybe it's just because I'm a touch paranoid. The inappropriate contact via phone or electronic device is prohibited, I think might be a little vague, and I think we should really probably be discouraging. I think we should write this policy to be as discouraging as possible for anything that's not directly related to academics or extracurricular activities. I think there's a big gray area between academics and what someone might consider inappropriate that I think we still want people to stay out of.
Okay. Mr. Marks?
You know, to kind of piggyback on that, within the Scouts BSA, we are required to have to deep communication whenever we're communicating with a scout who's of younger age, you know, potentially something like that, you know, because you're right, there's a lot of runway in between what somebody would consider appropriate and what other people would consider appropriate. I don't necessarily know that there's any reason for there to be direct one-on-one contact for you know, a teacher and a student outside of the already approved communication area. So, you know, maybe having there be some level of secondary.
So there is down in the later in the policy, it says all contact and messages by coaches and faculty advisors of team members shall be sent to all team members, except for messages concerning medical or academic privacy matters, in which case the messages will be copied to the appropriate administrator. So there would be, if there might be cases in a school thing where you might need to contact a student about an academic that's a private thing, but that an administrator would be copied on it, so it would not be direct one adult and a student, it would be two adults and a student. So I think that might be similar to what you're talking about there with the BSA. Ms. Blackman.
All I can say is, like, as a teacher myself, I have ended up with students I trusted who ended up babysitting my kids. So there are times outside of school that maybe your next door neighbor, you know, is babysitting for your kids. So you might have contact with them in that aspect rather than, you know, this is the problem. That, you know, again, policies are broad, procedures are very specific. I believe that the language discourages any inappropriate interactions, period. And that the school district is saying, cover your tail by making sure another adult who's in the administration or in that organization is on any communication you're having. But, you know, this is about protecting the kids, and I think that's one of my problems is that, and again, I'm a teacher. Feel free to come through my social media if somebody really wants to, but like the point of these two policies is to protect our students, not, and you know, if somebody says Beth Stafford had a glass of wine at some event, that doesn't violate the code of excellence that we inserted into the policy to make sure that is the standard, that it doesn't go against the code of, employee code of excellence. Just a point of order, we're at 8:50.
Okay.
I make a motion that we extend another 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Second.
I don't think we'll need it, but.
All right. All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. All right.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
And it, again, I actually read over this stuff and went, oh, and I, the same thing, but I'm thinking about, say, a coach having a leader, so one kid's the, you know, the leader, or in a, you know, you have that one kid that you're like, I need you here or here. How do they handle that double? Do they have another adult on that text, or how do they do that? Because there's a lot of those communications that we had, say, at Whitman Day, where we had, Bob Rogers had to handle all of the leaders, you know, the captains, to organize all of the different booths to help out everyone. Was he supposed to text all of us, or all of them, or let's just think about any music director, we need you here or there for any, because sometimes it's just one kid going to districts or something. How do you handle that? Like, you know, you've got to be at this front door, or, you know, so that's just my question. It's similar, but it's within the realm of an educator.
I think we talked about this a little bit, because one of the things too is that the district does have things like school status where they can do direct messages, but
Okay,
then
good.
it is then a documented, whereas if I texted a student with my own personal device, there's no record of that in the school, whereas if they use school status, I think we
Does
talked
the
about that there.
go through to a
It
texting
goes,
child?
so yeah, you can text someone using school status,
That's,
and then
okay,
it is.
then it
is-
require them to use school status.
No, it doesn't. So like, for example, like some of my daughter's teachers use school status, and I get a text from them, but it goes through school status.
Okay.
So it's just like a text, but it's not from their phone to my phone. It's from school, they put it through school status, and it comes to my phone like a text message. So, but it's through school status. So the district has communication, technology that allows it so that if there is a situation like that, but then at least there is a documented record of that communication.
That can be monitored. Yeah.
By the district.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, to Ms. Blackman's point, the issue that Ms. Stafford and I are talking about with the searching the internet isn't really about protecting students per se, because if a teacher is posting inappropriate things, that's not necessarily a student safety issue in the way that the communication piece is. So I think that's I think that we don't want, the staff posting inappropriate things on the internet, but it's not quite the same level as a student safety issue of direct communication between teachers and students. So I think it's a little bit different.
I would like to, say I will put these 2 items on the agenda. I welcome every single person who'd like to be involved, those watching, those here. If you would like to come and participate in the conversation at a policy subcommittee meeting, you are more than welcome. We will be meeting next Wednesday at 5 p.m. up in
No more than 3 of you,
Room.
though.
Oh, they can come as members of the public. It's okay.
They can't. I don't think they can speak.
They can speak
We can
as
speak
members
during
of the
public
public.
comment.
During public comment, that's right, okay, fair. All right, here we go. All right, moving on to warrant subcommittee and Ms. Stafford.
Yeah, both. Okay, so I'm
And those
going to
go
be
building.
really quickly. So what I did was, we met every 2 weeks, so I'm not going to go through every warrant that we did. What I'm going to give you is just the totals. If you want to see copies of our minutes, I can send them to you. But for accounts payable, for a total from till 8/21 was $6,346,612.08. For payroll, it was $11,498,203.31. For food service, it was $178,847.41. And for the Whitman Middle School Building Committee, it was $19,144,398.62. So,
What's the
like I
date
said,
of that again?
what was the date?
The date of it?
The dates were 5/29/8/21. That was the whole time. Actually, the
Yeah.
5/29 you already had probably, but
Yeah.
I took all of them together and added those. So
I appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Okay. Any
Next.
questions for Ms. Stafford about the warrant?
Who's on the warrant subcommittee
I-
now?
It's me and Ms.
The 2 of us.
So I just wanted to say that Mrs. Hill and I did go in and reviewed all of the warrants, just individually, just a kind of culmination of 3 months of warrants so that we could make sure there was nothing, that these 2 were up to, that was naughty. And we asked some questions and got great answers, so
Yep.
I just want to thank them for doing the work
And
every
we
2
also,
weeks.
between Ryan and I, have also asked several questions that we had. We go right and ask, one time, Dr. Marcus wasn't there, but Joey was, and it was actually a missing invoice. So Joey printed up another copy and gave it to me, so, things seem to be working well. And on the last one too, I'm gonna do this quickly, Whitman Middle School Building Committee, we met again last week. Everything is on schedule, on time, on budget. Everything is looking great. Tomorrow, if anybody is gonna be on the, walkthrough, we will be walking through the new building too, if you wanna join us, to see that.
What time is that?
9 o'clock we start.
Here.
Here,
Start
we
here,
meet
yeah.
here. So, but it is coming along very well. There's been a couple glitches. We had the glitch of, the roadway, because they had to do the whole new thing there. Yes, thank you, Chris. And, but it's all set. I drove down it yesterday. But it's something, it was $1.6 million, but what it did was, we had to repair the culvert now, or you wait until the whole thing fails in a few years after the brand-new soccer field is done and the new parking lot is done, and we would have had to rip everything up. So we did have the contingency for that. Well within the contingency, no problem. So that was taken care of. You know, we have a really good committee who look over everything, and when we have other expenditures that weren't expected, people are questioning that. We have a subcommittee of the subcommittee that does that, and also we question during meetings. So, and the meetings, the last meeting was much better than the previous one before that, because we had a few issues about things not being in the packet and things not brought up that should have. So that got corrected very quickly, and we actually had a very good meeting. I thought the last meeting was, everything was in the packet, everything was there that should be. Things, you know, it was almost like we're getting near the end, so I think there was a little bit of lax there. And our committee was making sure that lax was not happening. Right, Stephen?
That's right,
It was kind of a little bit boisterous, yes.
Mr. Marks, did you have a question?
I did. So the other day, Dr. Marcus sent out an email to the
Neighbors.
local neighbors, soccer and baseball, Little League, with a pending timeline that was pending approval of Deputy Chief Grasso and Chief Hamlin. Has that been approved?
I have not heard from them, so we're moving on.
So, yeah, I was gonna say, because tomorrow
Yeah.
is, I believe tomorrow
Tomorrow's
is the open
Thursday.
house at the
At the middle school.
current middle school.
Yes.
Yes.
For incoming sixth graders, so.
George said it's,
So
I
Bob
talked to
Hanley, the assistant superintendent, we met with him, and they are moving all of the temporary fence is going to be down. They are moving the parking lot, which had been really on the school part for the construction workers, back behind the green fence. And it should be and will be, according to Brandon, all back to like it was in June. You know what I mean? So construction workers coming that way, and then everybody else will be available to park.
All right, so just standard parking for parents who are going to that open house would be in the,
Front of the school, both ovals, side of the school,
Yeah.
and then it's optional for teachers sort of, but if there's still some room on the side, on the right, that's also available.
all right. And then the Hog Memorial Gate will be closed off
And
too.
until the gate is put back, the big metal gate.
Yep.
The fence is going to remain closed.
Okay,
So it will be, for tomorrow, from 9 to 11, they know that no people are coming in, no deliveries are coming in, and all the workers are supposed to be behind the green barrier on the right near where the trailers are and the construction site is. And that's gonna go on now for, infinity for the next 6
Yep.
months or 5 months, because school is gonna start.
okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Stafford. Do we have any public comment, Mr. Cook? Mr. Farrow?
no,
Okay.
No online friends.
No online friends either. Okay.
after all that.
So just a reminder that there is a walkthrough of all the buildings tomorrow, hosted by our illustrious superintendent, Dr. Marcus, starting
Get
at,
there, you just have to go to the trailers, right as you pull in, at the trailers, because they'll give out, I talked to the superintendent, they'll give out the hard hats and things like that, so we can gather at the trailers on the road.
yep. So we'll start here at the, so it goes high school, then is it
Hanson.
Indian, Hanson
Well, we
Middle?
might-
That's
No,
for the Indian, right,
we'll go-
because I was wrong.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I thought we were going
I
that
was
way.
wrong this morning when I spoke, this afternoon when we spoke, because I forgot that it's the sixth grade orientation.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
thank you.
Right,
Yeah,
so,
I remind,
Ms. Stafford, the one who used to run sixth grade orientation since Christ was a baby. Was the one who reminded me of that. So we'll have to probably go out to Hanson,
other way
and then,
first.
Indian Head, because Hansonville also has it. So we'll have to play a little dodgeball, but
Okay.
we all start here at 9 o'clock, and we can decide what's best from there.
Okay, so there's
Where
no
here?
set-
Like
There's no set, like,
outside of the
So if
main
you-
office?
we meet in the lobby here.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then usually, yeah, and then we
Get in
can
our cars.
text if you need it, if you come in late, or you can just let us know, we can send out an email. If you're gonna be- if you're gonna
We'll
be
tell
late
you
for
where we
school,
are.
then we wanna
okay,
join
you
you.
just tell us
All
where
right.
we are. Okay,
Sounds good.
that's fine.
Yeah,
All right,
where we are.
so with that,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
okay. All right,
Quick, say it, say it.
all right. Any discussion about adjourning? Anyone want to,
No.
anything else? All right,
No.
all in favor of adjourning?
Yes.
Thank you guys very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. drive safe.